Hello, I would like to introduce myself. My name is, and I want to talk to you about Australia and New Zealand. Basic facts. Další takhle zpracovaný maturitní otázky k angličtině najdeš jenom na SnadnaMaturita.cz. Let's start with some basic facts about Australia and New Zealand. Both are located in the southern hemisphere and are very modern countries with high living standards. Size and location. Australia is the sixth largest country in the world. However, it only has around 26 million people, of which 7.5 million are foreign-born. New Zealand is much smaller in size, with only about 5 million residents. New Zealand and Australia are situated southeast of Southeast Asia. Australia is separated from Asia by the Timor Sea in the north and from New Zealand by the Tasman Sea. New Zealand is about 1,500 kilometers east of Australia, across the Tasman Sea. Administrative system. Australia is a federation of 6 states and 2 mainland territories. Each one has its own parliament, government, premier or chief minister, and governor. New Zealand had been divided into provinces, but they were abolished in the late 19th century. Important cities. The capital cities of Australia and New Zealand are Canberra and Wellington. But both countries have other cities that are larger. Sydney is the largest city in Australia, with about 5 million residents, followed by Melbourne and Brisbane. The city with the most people in New Zealand is Auckland, with almost 1.5 million. Economy. Australia and New Zealand are among the richest countries in the world, with very strong economies. Australia is rich in natural resources. It exports large amounts of gold, iron, coal, wool, and wheat. Australia is also one of the world's largest exporters of wine. New Zealand is much less industrial, but well known for exporting products like meat, apples, wine, and wool. Thanks to a nice, mild climate and natural beauty, tourism is big in both countries, which adds a lot of money to their economies. Political system. Although both countries are independent, they are members of the Commonwealth, as they were once British colonies. This means that the formal head of both countries is the British monarch, who is now King Charles III, represented by a Governor-General in both countries. The Governor-General's office is like the presidential office in our country, so they are really the heads of state. They are also the commanders-in-chief, with a big ceremonial role. In both countries, Parliament has a major legislative role. It can make or change laws. The Australian Parliament is made up of the upper house, called the Senate, and the lower house, called the House of Representatives. The New Zealand Parliament has only one house, the House of Representatives. The Prime Ministers of both countries are the heads of government, and they must obey Parliament. The Australian Prime Minister is now Anthony Albanese. The Prime Minister of New Zealand is Chris Hipkins. Australian and New Zealand governments have an executive role and are responsible for the daily business of running the country. The Governor-General appoints each minister with the Prime Minister's advice. State symbols. Because Australia and New Zealand were once British colonies, their national flags are very similar to the British flag, which is called the Union Jack. There are some unofficial animal symbols that represent these countries as well. The most common Australian icons are the koala bear and the kangaroo. The national symbol and icon of New Zealand is a bird, a unique bird that doesn't fly, called the kiwi. People. A nice mix of people now live in both countries, but the indigenous people in each country are now only a minority. In Australia, they are called Aboriginals. The first people of New Zealand are called Maori. Now, the majority in both countries is Christian with British roots. This has been a big problem for the indigenous people, but recently both governments have started supporting these communities. Culture. Australian and New Zealand cultures show a lot of diversity. Cultures in both countries have mostly been influenced by British settlers and Christianity, but there is still a strong heritage from their first peoples. Most of the Europeans that arrived kept these original cultures under control. But today, people can learn about Maori and Aboriginal people, their traditions, food, art, and other skills at big festivals. Geography and environment. Both Australia and New Zealand are island countries. Apart from some smaller islands, Australia is actually two islands. The main one called Australia, plus a small island off Australia's southern coast called Tasmania. New Zealand is made up of two main islands of about the same size, called the North Island and the South Island. The oceans around Australia are the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. New Zealand has the Pacific Ocean on its east, and between New Zealand and Australia is the Tasman Sea. Thanks to being so big, Australia has many different landscapes, including deserts, rainforests, and mountain ranges. Australian lowlands are mostly along the coast, especially the east coast. Central Australia is mostly dry areas with large deserts. New Zealand also has many different landscapes. The North Island has beaches and volcanoes. The South Island has a lot of mountains, including a big mountain range called the Southern Alps. Australia's longest river is the Murray, and its highest point is Mount Kosciuszko. The highest peak in New Zealand is Mount Cook, at almost 4,000 meters above sea. Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and a few other small Pacific islands and archipelagos together make up the smallest continent on Earth, called Oceania. History. Looking back to the past, Australia Day was one of the most important moments in Australian history. On January 26, 1788, the first fleet of 11 British ships arrived in Port Jackson and created a new British colony by setting up a camp and raising the British flag. Famous people. Even though Australia and New Zealand have fewer people than most countries, some Australians and New Zealanders have become famous. In fact, many famous Hollywood actors and actresses, such as Hugh Jackman, Cate Blanchett, and Chris Hemsworth, who are often thought of as American, were born in Australia. Sir Edmund Hillary, a famous mountaineer, was born in Auckland, New Zealand. He was the first one to climb Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. For that, Queen Elizabeth II gave him a knighthood. One of the greatest living New Zealand icons is Peter Jackson, the film director who produced the Lord of the Rings movie series. Two foreigners played a very important role in the history of both countries by helping to establish them. The first is Abel Tasman, a Dutch explorer who discovered New Zealand in 1642. The Tasman Sea, Tasmania, and Abel Tasman National Park are named after him. The second one is James Cook, a British explorer who, in 1770, was the first person to map the east coast of Australia. He also made the first recorded trip around the entire New Zealand. Interesting places. Now, I would like to recommend some interesting places to visit in Australia. Ayers Rock, or Uluru, is an unusual rock formation in Central Australia. It is one of the country's most famous natural landmarks and a special spot for the Aboriginal people. The Great Barrier Reef is located off the northeast coast of Australia. It's the world's largest coral reef system and one of the most popular tourist spots. It is also one of the best scuba diving sites in the world. Sydney Opera House is a famous performing arts centre. Thanks to its unique architecture, it's probably the best known building in Australia. Now let's move to New Zealand for a minute. I think New Zealand is best known for its natural wonders. The Abel Tasman National Park is one of the most beautiful national parks in New Zealand. It's situated on the north end of the South Island, full of beautiful beaches, ridges, and trails. It is also home to colonies of big seals and even the world's smallest penguins. Thank you for listening and goodbye. Slovníček. A bunch of, hodně. A few, několik. Above, nad. Actually, vlastně. Abolish, zrušit. Across, přes. Although, přestože. Almost, skoro. Amount, množství. Along the coast, podél pobřeží. Apart from, aside from, kromě toho. Appoint, jmenovat nebo ustanovit. Archipelago, souostroví. Are among, jsou nebo patří mezi. Are thought of as, jsou považováni za. Are situated, nacházejí se. Around the entire, kolem celé nebo kolem celého. As well, také. As, jelikož. Australian, australský nebo australská. Back to the past, zpět do minulosti. Between, mezi. Both, oba nebo obě. By setting up, založením. Camp, tábor. Central, centrální. Ceremonial role, formální role. Christian, křesťanský nebo křesťanská. Christianity, křesťanství. Coal, uhlí. Coral reef, korálový útes. Colony, kolonie. Climb, vylézt. Commander-in-chief, vrchní velitel ozbrojených sil. Daily business, každodenní záležitosti. Desert, poušť. Developed, rozvinutý nebo rozvinutá. Dry, suchý nebo suchá. Discover, objevit. Diversity, variety, pestrost. Each, každý nebo každá. Even, dokonce. Earth, planeta Země. Event, událost. Especially, zejména. Explorer, objevitel. Even though, přestože. Executive, výkonný nebo výkonná. To export, vyvážet. Exporter, vývozce. Festival, festival. Film director, režisér. Fewer, méně. Flag, vlajka. First recorded trip, první zaznamenaná cesta. Foreigner, cizinec. Followed by, následovaný nebo následovaná něčím. Foreign born, narozený nebo narozená v zahraničí. For that, za to. Full of, plný něčeho. Great Barrier Reef, velký bariérový útes. Heritage, dědictví. Icon, ikona. I would like to, chtěl nebo chtěla bych. In fact, ve skutečnosti. In the late 19th century, koncem 19. století. Including, včetně. Indigenous, domorodý nebo domorodá. Independent, samostatný nebo samostatná. Industrial, průmyslový nebo průmyslová. Iron, železo. Influenced by, ovlivněný nebo ovlivněná něčím nebo někým. Island countries, ostrovní země. Is divided into, je rozdělený nebo rozdělená do. Is separated from, je oddělený nebo oddělená od. Kangaroo, klokan. Its own, svůj vlastní. Knighthood, rytířský titul. Keep under control, mít pod kontrolou. Koala bear, medvídek koala. Landmark, významný bod. Larger, větší. Landscape, krajina. Law, zákon. Legislative, zákonodárný nebo zákonodárná. Let's move, pojďme se přesunout. Living standard, životní standard. Located in, nacházející se v. Lowland, nížina. Main one, ten hlavní. Made up of, tvořený, tvořená něčím. Mainland, pevninský nebo pevninská. Meat, maso. Majority, většina. To map, zmapovat. Mild climate, mírné klima. Minority, menšina. Member, člen. Most common, nejběžnější. Most of the Europeans, většina Evropanů. Mountain range, pohoří. Mostly, nejvíce. movie series, filmová série. Mountaineer, horolezec. Much less, mnohem méně. Named after him, pojmenovaný nebo pojmenovaná po něm. Natural resources, přírodní zdroje. Natural wonder, zázrak přírody. Obey, podrobit se nebo poslouchat. Of which, z nichž. Office, úřad. Off the coast, u pobřeží. On the north end, na severním okraji. Once, kdysi nebo jednou. Origin, původ. Peak, vrchol nebo vrcholek. Performing arts, muzická umění. They played a very important role, hráli velmi důležitou roli v něčem. Point, bod. Prime minister, premiér. Presidential, prezidentský nebo prezidentská. Probably nebo likely, pravděpodobně. To produce, produkovat. Rainforest, deštný prales. Raise, vstyčit. Recently nebo lately, v poslední době nebo nedávno. Recommend, doporučit. Responsible for, zodpovědný za něco. Represent, zastupovat. Resident, obyvatel. Rich in, bohatý nebo bohatá na něco. Ridge, horský hřeben. Rock formation, skalní útvar. Run, řídit. Roots, kořeny. Scuba diving site, místo na potápění. Seal, tuleň. Similar, podobný nebo podobná. Second one, ten druhý nebo ta druhá. Skills, dovednosti. Settlers, osadníci. Show nebo display, ukazovat nebo zobrazovat. Sixth largest, šestý nebo šestá největší. Smaller in size, menší velikostně. Southern hemisphere, jižní polokoule. Special spot, významné místo. Still, stále. Thanks to being so big, díky své velikosti. To support, podporovat. This means that, to znamená, že. To establish them, založit je. To introduce myself, představit se nebo sebe. Together make up, dohromady tvoří. Tourism is big, cestovní ruch je významný. Trail, stezka. Unique, unikátní. Unofficial, neoficiální. Unusual, neobvyklý nebo neobvyklá. Volcano, sopka. Wheat, pšenice. Well known, dobře známý nebo známá. Which adds, což dodává nebo přináší. Wine, víno. Wool, vlna. With someone's advice, na něčí návrh. A teď ještě naskok k nejčastějším chybám. U některých jiných témat si opakujeme jedno ze základních pravidel, a to, jak v ájině správně používat členy a the. A protože v téhle otázce budeš nejspíš často používat různý zeměpisný názvy, tak pozor na to, že u nich je to zrovna docela složitý. Třeba u Česka tohleto moc řešit nemusíme, ale když už si jednou tu Austrálii a Nový Zéland vytáhneš, je dobrý vědět, že třeba ostrovy, ale i hory nebo většina měst jsou v angličtině s takzvaným nulovým členem, to znamená v praxi bez členu. třeba Tasmania nebo Sydney. Pozor, v případě 2 hlavních novozélandských ostrovů, jižního a severního, je tam ale výjimka. S určitým členem v budou všechny pohoří a řeky, a co se ti u téhle otázky bude hodit asi nejvíc, člen v bude i před názvama moří a oceánů. The Pacific Ocean, the Tasman Sea. Možná ještě hloupější by ale bylo používat špatně samotný názvy těch zemí, o kterých mluvíš. Jenom v té naší otázce byly tyhle 2 názvy použitý dohromady skoro 70krát, takže pozor, za prvý jednoslovný názvy států v jednotném čísle nemají žádný člen a platí to i pro Austrálii. Takže ne The Australia, ale jenom Australia. A přestože u většiny těch dvouslovných se pro změnu člen používá, Nový Zéland je, pozor, jednou z výjimek, takže aspoň se to bude dobře pamatovat, New Zealand bude taky bez členů. U přídavných jmen, to znamená, když budeš během mluvení cokoliv chtít označit za australský nebo novozélandský, se taky dá snadno udělat chyba. Asi o něco jednodušší pro tebe bude pamatovat si přídavný jméno Australian, australský nebo australská, což je stejný tvar jako třeba America, American. Míň obvyklý, ale paradoxně vlastně jednodušší je to s přídavným jménem novozélandský nebo novozélandská. To se totiž vůbec nemění, zůstává to stejný jako název toho státu. Takže zatímco australský parlament bude The Australian Parliament, ten novozélandský bude The New Zealand Parliament. A to je všechno, hodně štěstí u maturity a dodám k tomu frázi žádný obavy neboli no worries a pokusím se u toho o australský přízvuk. No worries. Hlavně to no samozřejmě nebylo na poprví. No, 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 no.